Electric vehicle stocks, not named Tesla or NIO, have been getting beat up a lot lately. In this video, we're going to look at Workhorse, which is one of the electric vehicle plays that certainly fits that group. We've talked about Nikola Motors earlier on this channel. Now we're going to talk about Workhorse, which has a similar fraud allegation from a different short seller, in this case it being Fuzzy Panda Research. And they accuse Workhorse of pretty much they are overestimating their ability to get the USPS contract, and even if they do get it, not having the sufficient resources, the sufficient expertise to fully carry it out. So in other words, we have a strongly exaggerated idea of the likelihood of a USPS contract happening. For anyone who doesn't know, the USPS contract allows Workhorse to produce a bunch of commercial vehicles for the United States Postal Service. So let's say even if this does happen, this represents a small segment of the market, like commercial EVs. It's a very small market with very small potential compared to a EV play like Tesla, which actually has some meat on the bone. Another thing to note, I always like to look at valuations, and Workhorse is hovering at a staggering 8,000 price to sales ratio. Just to give you an idea of how staggering that is, let's say I open up a lemonade stand and I spend $10 to get lemons, to get glasses, $10 on materials, and I make $5 in revenue because that's how much in lemonade I sell. With the 8,000 price to sales ratio, I can go ahead and say that this lemonade stand that produced $5 in revenue and I spent $10 to get that $5, we only look at that $5 and it comes to a $40,000 valuation that I would be able to sell this business. If you think that's crazy, then, well, that's kind of what I think about Workhorse's valuation at this moment, because that is what the price to sales ratio indicates. So with Workhorse at this rocket high valuation, the idea of it is definitely more complex than just a lemonade stand. You have EV, you have the electric, you have pretty much this idea where a lot of these electric vehicle plays, Nikola Motors included, Lordstown Motors, they get into the market through SPACs, and they're pitched as this next Tesla because they have cars and they do electric, and Tesla did the same things too. So apparently people make a false connection. But again, even if this contract gets approved and even if Workhorse is able to deliver on it, it's a small segment of the market that doesn't really justify the high price tag. And if you combine this with, now I get that someone could do a short seller report, there's financial motivation in some cases, but with the fact that not only is Workhorse and Nikola Motors similar in the sense of the type of business there and just general, like the EV. I know Nikola Motors has more of a consumer preference, the Badger, that's probably on the chopping block. And they have the truck, which isn't so consumer, that's more for businesses. Workhorse is also for the commercial side, so you don't really have too much runway, even if this thing works out, even if it is completely legitimate. I mean, Fuzzy Panda also has the similar accusations. Nikola Motors says Workhorse is actually even worse than Nikola Motors. That's actually what they say. But they give the same allegation of Workhorse rolling a truck down a hill. I mean, I roll a truck down a hill. That's your new billion-dollar idea, I guess. But in any event, Workhorse, it has such a high valuation. It has short seller concerns where it's getting accused of fraud. And remember, it came public through a SPAC. SPACs have less scrutiny. It's easier to get public through a SPAC versus the traditional route. It's also, if you think about the history of SPACs, SPACs were seen for the most part, as an unpopular way to get into the stock market. People didn't really budge on those. And now all of a sudden, they're the big craze. Like, you hear a SPAC and you get into it because you hope that SPAC turns into a successful company later on. When was the last time SPACs were super popular in the stock market? 2007. We all know what happened in the stock market the year after 2007. We're at a craze period where you have these insanely high valuations. And even though Workhorse has dropped so much since its high, it is still at a ridiculous valuation, even though it has made less than $1 million per year in the past 2 years. That's not that's not the type of revenue that gets to justify a multi-billion-dollar market cap. It's just not. And if you combine this with all the uncertainty of the world in general, the massive uncertainty with the stock, the uncertainty with EV SPACs like Nikola Motors and Lordstown Motors, that has gone down dramatically, at least 50% from its highs. There is a lot of concern with this stock, and I don't know. Like, I am not touching this in any way. I am touching it with puts. I am buying puts on this company. So there's my position. Like, I don't have puts as of this video, but I plan on doing more, especially when earnings reports come up, because the one thing that is holding this stock upright is the USPS contracts. And it's not like Workhorse. It's not a done deal. There are other competitors in there, not too many, but there are some that can grab that contract instead of Workhorse. And this is like the major catalyst that is holding onto the stock. And you have a short seller, again, positions like, you got to keep that in mind. But they say that, hey, there's foul play going on here. So you have all this going on. I don't get why the valuation is that high. And if you want to get into the electric vehicle play and you could only pick one stock, I definitely pick Tesla. And I think a lot of people, they look at something like a Workhorse or Nikola Motors or a Lordstown Motors, and they just look at a low market cap. They're getting into it very early on, and getting into something with a low market cap, just a few $1 billion. I know that sounds like a lot, but market caps and relative to what other companies have done, anything under $10 billion or $20 billion, not that big of a market cap. So they see that and they think this thing is going to be a multi-bagger, but just because it has some of the elements in place doesn't mean it has that multi-bagger potential. Workhorse, a lot of people do like this stock. You see a lot of people on YouTube talk good things about it. For me, it just doesn't make sense to invest in this company. And again, there are other options out there that are far more compelling. It's not just a matter of, do I invest in Workhorse? It's, do I invest money into Workhorse that I now cannot put into any other stock? So those are some of my thoughts on Workhorse. I feel like they have a more solid chance than Nikola Motors. Like, we just have the car rolling down the hill for them, and Workhorse is receiving a similar allegation. I feel like they have a little more going for them than Nikola Motors, but not that much. I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments what you think about the stock. Are you buying the stock? Are you buying puts like me? Are you shorting the stock? Always love to hear from you guys in the comments. Make sure you subscribe for more like this, and I'll see you guys next time.